Welcome to the Make and Design Podcast. I'm your host, Carina Gardner. On this podcast, we're unraveling the everyday joys and dilemmas of design, making, and business. For makers who want to be designers and for designers who are makers, this is your inside scoop to help you grow your business and bring more creativity to your life. Hey guys, today I'm here with Christopher Thompson, who is most known as the Tattoo Quilter on Instagram. Christopher is a designer with me at Riley Blake, and he actually works for Riley Blake now. And the two of us, I almost wish I had recorded us just chatting because we were talking about Broadway and New York City, and it, like, seriously, the stories and the wealth of knowledge Christopher has is amazing. Do you want to tell them anything? You don't have to tell them any of the things we were talking about, but we were just talking about how he's been to Mean Girls like 17 times and Beetlejuice 3 times. I have a daughter who's obsessed with Beetlejuice. So seriously, and I hadn't heard anything about this like lottery system or hanging out when you got off the train to get into, like, will you tell any of that? Because I'm sure people are fascinated.
They're probably mortified that I've seen Mean Girls 17 times, but that's okay. Honestly, now I don't know with the pandemic how things have changed, but a lot of shows will do a rush, like a student rush or an early morning rush. So I've been in line for shows at 7 a.m. to get rush tickets, and usually they're super cheap tickets. Sometimes they're not the best seats. Sometimes they're standing room only. But I always check out playbill.com, and they will post an article of shows that are doing rush, standing room only. And then some shows do a lottery where when you go, I think it's 2 hours before the show starts, you can enter your name on a piece of paper. They'll put it in a bowl, and then they'll select names for people to get tickets to see that show that night. And it's, like I said, it's 2 hours usually before the show. So I would get off the train at work, find out which shows were doing those lottery tickets, go and enter, and you could get 1 ticket or 2 tickets. And so I would go see a show, and a lot of times the lottery tickets are like $30, $40, nothing over 100 because Broadway tickets are so expensive. So yeah, that was kind of my magic trick to be able to see shows, as many times as I did, and I love when people would come to visit, because then I would say, let's go see a show, and Sue Daly, who's also a designer for Riley, she and her and her daughter were in New York City, and we went to see Beautiful, which I hadn't seen. This was well before the pandemic. I think I even tried to convince her to see Beetlejuice, and she was like, no.
I know. Well, so the crazy thing to me about Beetlejuice, because when we were in New York City a couple years ago, we went to go see Beetlejuice and Mean Girls. Both of those were high on my list. And then we also went and saw Wicked. Beetlejuice, like, I don't really love the show, like the movie with Michael Keaton. I mean, it's okay. Like, it's fun, it's entertaining, whatever. But I loved the Broadway play. Like, I loved it because it's just so quirky, and this set design is amazing, and the music is fun. And it's just, there's something about it that feels different in the Broadway play version than it does, right?
Yeah, they adapted it to the musical. And, I think when you add music to, any sort of like movie or lyrics or, script, it changes the whole dynamic of it. And you're getting more, I think you're getting a closer look to the character itself. So like you get to experience Lydia in a different point of view because she's singing a song about, her dead mom. Same with Beetlejuice. I mean, they really changed Beetlejuice. He's still kind of pervy, but like just he's sassy.
And the guy who played him was brilliant. Like he pulled it off, because I think that is one of the things about the movie. You're like, he's like a little too creepy. Like, whereas you don't feel that in the Broadway play. You just, like, it's almost like he's being made fun of a little bit for the way he is.
And it's ridiculous. I watched this interview he did where he actually trained his voice to do that.
Oh my gosh.
So that he wouldn't, because I was like, I can't imagine doing that 7 shows, a week. I would be hoarse and down for it. But he trained his vocal cords to be able to do that scratchy, deep voice so that he wouldn't injure himself. And I'm like, Brilliant.
I know, that's so crazy. You guys, I know we're gonna get to mini quilts today, but it seriously, especially at this time, like when the country is, we hope, kind of starting to open up a little bit, and that you get a chance, like this has just been, it's been so fun to connect and like hear about living in New York City, because I've never lived there. My little sister lives there. She's in fashion design. And then just hearing all of Christopher's background in fashion design, seriously so cool. Like so like good stories. And then now even like with Jack living there, I don't know how you guys are doing it. Like back and forth. Like how's that work?
Yeah. So some people might not know this, but Jack, my partner, he has a master's in costume construction. And when we first started dating, he was working as a swing at the Lion King. And a swing is typically someone they would call in if someone full-time was out sick. So they have swings for everyone, the cast, the crew, wardrobe. And he ended up, was in the right place at the right time, got a full-time track dressing Mufasa and Simba at the Lion King. And
this guy's seriously so cool. Like it just like, I'm like, what? That's what he does? That's so cool.
And he, and I think it's really cool. And he's like, yeah, it's my job, but we moved out to Salt Lake City, and that's his heart is, and that's what he knows how to do. His experience is theater and costume construction, and so he had a hard time finding a job. Like even at Target, they were like, you have no retail experience, we're not going to hire you, which is so silly to me. But anyway, we decided that it was best for him to move back to New York City to continue his job at the Lion King. And so we moved him back at the beginning of August. They went through crazy rehearsals for a few weeks with Julie Taymor, who, created the Lion King on Broadway. And which I think is really cool. And he's like, oh yeah, Julie's here today. And I was like, what? Like, send me pictures. But I went to see him the weekend right before the show opened. And so I got to go to Final Dress. It was invited, friends and family were invited to go. And I was so nervous because I had not been around that many people in a year and a half, being on a plane, 100 people, whatever, but it was an entire theater full of people. And, there's protocols now where you have to show your vaccination card and you have to be masked. Well, I took it to the extreme and wore 2 masks because I was so nervous. And it was the most magical thing because I kept thinking about all of these, people who had been out of a job for a year and a half and come back together. And I just cried. And I said to my friend who went with me, I was like, I'm going to cry when the animals come down the aisle.
I always cry when the animals come down the aisle. Like
it's
doesn't, so but it is always so magical. But I can only imagine in that particular circumstance how much more magical, because when you're away from that, it's like everything you took for granted before now feels like really special.
Yeah, and that's what it was like. And it was Julie came out to a speech, and then as soon as they do the circle of life and the curtains came up, I mean, everyone, just the energy in that room, I wish I could have bottled that up, the emotion too, and just bottled that up to save it, because I just was like, and the lady who plays Rafiki, Sidi, I met her one time. We got to take a babka making class together with some other members.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's like a bread. It's a bread, a babka bread. And I think I'm saying it right. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. So I got to meet her, and I think she's maybe 60. Beautiful woman, beautiful soul. And so and she's from South Africa. And so to hear her sing those opening notes of Circle of Life and knowing her, and I just was like, don't know if I can take this anymore.
I'm just hearing about it and I'm getting goosebumps. Like, I'm like, I wasn't even there and I'm getting goosebumps.
It was magical. And, now some other shows have started to open, Aladdin's opened, Wicked, Phantom, all the big ones. The one that I'm super excited about, and hopefully I'll be able to see, Mrs. Doubtfire, the musical.
Yeah, I saw that was on, but I don't know anything about it.
I'm super stoked to see it. And I think I really want to see it because of the costume change from, him to her. So I'm stoked to see how they do that so quickly. But yeah, I love Broadway, and Jack's happy to be back and working, and we lucked out. We were able to get back into our old apartment building, and which is next door to Wicked.
So I know exactly where it is then, because I stayed in a hotel that was right across from Wicked. So that's so
we're
crazy.
Right there. And he took the dogs with him because it's easier for him to run, between the shows, or, before he goes to work or after work, to take them out. Whereas here I would need a dog walker. But yeah, we're doing it and we're making it work, and we'll see, what happens. And it's interesting because people are like, oh, but you're away from each other. Well, the reality is when, before the pandemic, because of Jack's schedule, we were opposite, really. I was at work when he was at home. And then when I was at home, he was at work. And, when he got home from work, I was ready to go to bed, so we had pockets of time together. So it was usually Monday when he was off. That was our date night. And, we did things together. And then Saturday morning, we always went to breakfast. Sunday morning, we always went to breakfast. And then he was at work or I was at work. Yeah. And so it's very similar to that now,
which is so ironic because my husband and I both work from home. He works upstairs and I'm on the main floor in my studio, and he has an office upstairs. But we still have to go out. We go out Friday nights, kind of our religiously, we go out. And it's like, we haven't seen each other all week long because we haven't. Like, he's up there working 60 hours. I'm down here working 60 hours. And so and then we're racing kids to all their things. And so there is something to be said about that. And I love that both of you are kind of just like chasing your passions, and what you really love and want to do, which, speaking of, tell me about Riley Blake. Are you in the office? Are you working from home? How does that work?
Yeah, so I, since I got here, which has been a year, I have been in the office, which I really love because it gives me the opportunity to, I think there are some jobs that you have to do in person. So when it comes to something like design, marketing, graphic, all that things, I want to see and touch things. Like, I want a printout, sorry, trees, but I want like a printout of things, I need to see it. And so I love being in the office. And then I get to work with Holly, who's the design director for Riley Blake, and Cindy, and just that partnership and relationship that you can do in person, I think is stronger than when you're on a screen.
Yeah. And you're in the Alpine office, you're in the corporate office, right? Not the Sandy. We actually moved, and I'm like super close to the Sandy office, which is so amazing because I'm always ordering my own fabric. Like, I need to pick up stuff, and I just race down there and go pick up what I need. It's the best. But I love those Alpine offices. Those are so, so, so fun. So I'm assuming you have an office somewhere I just haven't been there for a year and a half to do strike offs or anything. So I have no idea where anybody is.
So I'm a couple of doors down from Holly and Cindy.
Okay.
And it's the first time in my, adult working career that I've had an office. So it feels cool and crazy and, magical. And I tell people, if the door's shut, it's something important. But if it's open, interrupt me and come in all day. It's been really cool.
So tell me a little bit about mini quilts, because that's kind of what you're known for. It's the thing you love doing the most. Well, tell me a little bit about that.
Mini quilts, my first quilt was what they would call wall hanging. Now we call mini quilts. And I'd like to think that anything 30 inches and below.
30 inches is pretty big, though. I mean, I think of 30 inches as pretty big. So maybe all I make is mini quilts and I don't even realize it.
Maybe. And the reason why mini quilts for me is I feel like, when I lived in New York City, I didn't have space, my first apartment was 400 and some odd square feet. My roommate, I was sewing on an antique Hoosier cabinet, didn't really have space to stretch out or have a large amount of fabric. And so mini quilts was a way for me to make a project without it being, having to take up a lot of space. make a mini project. The other thing that I love about mini quilts is it gives me the opportunity to explore a new technique. So I was anti-foundation paper piecing for a long time. I was like, I'm not doing that. That looks crazy, you know? And I watched a YouTube video that explained it very carefully and in a way that I understood. It was almost like foundation paper piecing for dummies, AKA me. And I ended up I kept exploring it. And through mini quilts, I was able to figure out how to do foundation paper piecing that was comfortable for me. And now I still will draw on a giant paper pad, my own foundation paper piecing templates. And, I do a lot of it still through, I can do it through Illustrator and things like that, but there's something about drawing it myself that I love as part of the process of making a quilt. And so, same thing, like I have tried different binding techniques. I went through this phase of rounding the corners on all of my little mini quilts. And that was a technique that I had to learn, and bias binding, because I didn't grow up doing bias binding. Even the thought of cutting a bias binding, I'm like, and so I would say to Jack, help me, I don't know which way to fold the fabric. Really, that was just me trying to get him to do it for me. And so yeah, mini quilts is just, it kind of just kept going. And that really was the foundation that has become the foundation of my brand as the Tattoo Quilter, mini quilts. And I love it. I love doing something, a small project, and really just seeing it go from the very beginning of, a fat quarter. And that's the other thing too. I don't, people are like, what about your fabric stash? And I've just learned, because of living in New York City, I can't have a large amount of fabric. And shockingly enough, even having my own sewing space now, I still don't have that much fabric. And being at Riley Blake, I still don't have a ton of fabric. And that's because I've conditioned my brain to say, you could have a half yard and under. That was, and there would be times when I would, buy something online, and I would reach out to them and say, can you cut that yard into 2 half yards for me? It's easier for me to work with my product, and so I've just conditioned myself to work in those smaller parameters. And I love it. It feels tidier. It feels like I'm accomplishing something. I'm using all of my fabric. Even if I have fabric left over, I will use it until I can't use it anymore.
Which is also the beauty of a mini quilt, right? Like, because there are ways to use your little stash pieces in a mini quilt that is really difficult when you have a big quilt, because you feel like you have to use so much fabric to build that quilt.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with foundation paper piecing, if you start and you get hooked, there are so many little pieces in some of those templates that you could just dig through all of your little scraps, and you're like, oh, this triangle, that's like a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. I could use it for the nose, or, like there's so many ways that you could keep using what you have. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.
What are you working on right now?
Oh man. So when I signed as a designer at Riley Blake, I got this little box of fabric to say, welcome. And inside of it was this Crayola fat quarter box. And it had, all the colors, the red, the Roy G. Biv of fat quarters for Crayola. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to make with this. And I started, again, drawing my own foundation paper piece templates. It was 2 blocks. And I think I photographed it a couple of times with some other blocks, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with it. Time went on, and during the pandemic, I pulled out this, I'm so weird. I will put things in like little zipper pouches, blocks, patterns, templates, and then I have a Chester drawer that I put all that stuff in. And sometimes I'll go back through it and I'll say, oh, I didn't even finish making this. I need to finish this, or I need to make another one of these blocks. And I found the 2 blocks. They were tucked into some other stuff. And I said, oh, I need to finish this. And so I laid the blocks out, and I was like, okay, I want to do something else with it. And I ended up drawing, I think, 3 more templates and making it. And I finished it while I finished the top itself. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. If you're on the podcast, you're not going to see this, but if you're on YouTube, this is so cool. That is so cool, Christopher.
So
it's like he's used the colors as blocks, but he's done these really cool, intricate, asymmetric, like cool things to the blocks themselves. And then the machine quilting is fantastic.
That I did not do because I have no patience when it comes to quilting or binding.
You and me both, yeah.
And I also don't love dense quilting. Please don't send me any hate email, people, but I really don't. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I see quilts and I'm blown away, and I love how it looks. I just have it's never been something that I've been, that I've gravitated to. So this, when I finished it, I, moved it here to Salt Lake City, and I was like, I have to quilt this, but I knew that me quilting it was not going to do the blocks justice. And so Chelsea Fitzgerald, I think Cuddle Up Quilts is her Instagram handle. I gave it to her, and she was like, what are you thinking? And I was like, you know what? Just go. I don't, just do it. Because
you gave creative license. You were just like, just do it.
Yeah, I'm like, go for it. And she brought it to life in a way that I would have never imagined, or had I quilted it myself, would have never looked like that. And so it's truly an art piece now where, the journey of those blocks and that fabric and now the quilting it's just all come together, and it's pretty magical.
It is magical, and it's beautiful. Like, it is beautiful. And it's like the first time I've kind of thought of machine quilting as an art, although it's not really that. Even walking in the garden of quilts, the number of times I like kind of gasped at some people's machine quilting, I was just like, okay, first of all, I had zero patience apparently, because just watching, like seeing all the intricate, like just the little sewing scribbles, I'm like, I have zero patience for that. Like, that is not me. But I am always amazed by the people who do that kind of thing.
It's like seeing that quilt, and now she's done 2 quilts for me. It blows my mind because I can't wrap my head around it. It's like it's like a cook or a chef. It's like, what is in your mind that you're able to just, ta-da, this beautiful plate of food, ta-da, this beautiful long arm quilting. And I know it takes practice, like anything that we do as creatives, but I'm like, how do you start? Like, where do you, and I'm sure I gave her a canvas and she went to work. And I just, like you, I don't have the patience for it. I'm like, how many lines of quilting can I get? Can I do this in the next hour? Let's go.
I know. That's why we are just grateful for the people who want to do that part of it, right? I think we just get really grateful for the people who are willing to do that. Well, Christopher, it has been so fun to talk to you. You're multiple people now. If people are trying to find you, which you guys are going to want to, his feed is amazing. Tell everyone where they can find you.
So on Instagram, it's at the Tattooed Quilter. And there's some underscores in there between the and tattooed. And on my website, thetattooedquilter.com.
Yeah. And there are 2 T's and 2 O's in that. You guys, we're going to put the link in the description so that you guys can find him and all the marvelous things he's doing. I am so excited for you. And I really hope I have you on the show again, and we can talk even more about Broadway and all the things going on, and maybe even food, because man, we love our food.
Yes. And my favorite soda shops here in Salt Lake City.
Oh, see, I'm not a soda drinker. Like, I'm a purely water drinker. So that, yeah, we should at some point.
You.
I know. I know. Well, you can give everyone the soda shops, and I'll tell everyone all my favorite foodie places, and you can contribute to that. Although the place we ate at Garden of Quilts, Provence, is that how we say it? I don't even know.
Provisions, that's
right. Is in my old Salt Lake neighborhood. And so it was really fun to go back and eat there because they have the best orange wallpaper. Yes, I am saying it. Orange wallpaper. It's not just orange. It's like fluorescent orange, but it is the best.
Yes.
So really good. Is. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk to you guys soon. Hey, did you know that you can visit me at makeanddesign.com to learn more about this podcast and join my VIP group for weekly freebies? I can't wait to see you there.